Thank you for watching QTV with the news. My name is Diana Sumbwe. We take a look at stories making headlines. Zambia's installed power generation capacity will by June rise to 3,000 megawatts. And President Edgar Lungu has been called upon to state his position on the autocracies being perpetrated against civilians by authorities in Zimbabwe. And now, details in our news. Zambia's installed power generation capacity will by June rise to 3,000 megawatts. Minister of Energy Matthew Nkua has disclosed that this generation capacity will be made possible with the commissioning of 2 solar plants in Lusaka South Multi-Facility Economic Zone. Mr. Nkua has told Q News in an interview that the first solar plant, Bangweulu, whose generation capacity is 54 megawatts, will be commissioned in March this year. He says the other solar plant, Ngonye, whose capacity will be 50 megawatts once completed, will be commissioned by June. Mr. Nkua says that the over 100 megawatts produced from these plants is what will bring Zambia's generation capacity to 3,000 megawatts from its current installed capacity of 2,900 megawatts. He states that with this generation capacity against the peak demand of 2,200 megawatts, the country will have room to maneuver and preserve water in the Kariba Dam. And Mr. Nkua notes that all repair works to replace old equipment at the Leopards Hill ZESCO substation, which caused load shedding in some areas in Lusaka, are now complete. He says the load shedding being experienced in some areas across the country could only be due to faults on ZESCO power lines being caused by heavy rains.
Where we are right now, we are on 2,900 megawatts as the total capacity for Zambia installed capacity. But with the coming in of these 2 solar plants, we are going to 3,000 megawatts, and our peak demand is 2,200 megawatts. So we've got room for maneuver, and I think we are quite safe there. We didn't deplete a lot of water last year, so this rainy season the water is just adding on.
Last time you indicated that there are some repair works going on at Leopards Hill substation. Has now that repair work finished?
Those repair works have been done and they are finished, but rainy season comes with a challenge whereby these wooden poles keep collapsing, and we get a lot of faults during the rainy season. So when we get faults, it's as a result of just faults, lightning.
The Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD, says that there is need for government to ensure that negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for a financial bill package are concluded within the course of 2019. CTPD Executive Director Isaac Mwaipopo says failure to which the country should begin to intensify efforts in identifying alternative solutions though it can restructure its public debt. Mr. Mwaipopo says as the IMF team visits Zambia for their routine visits under Article 4, it is important for government to ensure that progress is made in concluding the negotiations for a financial bailout, considering that they have taken too long. The Zambian government has for the past 3 years been engaged with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for a bailout package of about 1.3 billion United States dollars aimed at easing the current macroeconomic and financial challenges while the country implements urgent stabilization and fiscal reforms. And Mr. Mwaipopo says there is need to restructure the current infrastructure development agenda in order to align it to the available resources and spread it over time. He says Zambia needs to design a debt repayment strategy that is specific. Mr. Mwaipopo is therefore appealing to government to take advantage of the impending visit by the IMF team and clearly make its case. President Edgar Lungu has been called upon to make his position known on the atrocities being perpetrated against civilians by authorities in Zimbabwe. Human rights lawyer Mono Mapani says as chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security, President Edgar Lungu has a responsibility to protect people's rights in the region. Mr. Mapani states that by ignoring what is happening in the neighboring country, President Lungu is letting the region and humanity down. He has told QTV News that SADC and Zambia in particular cannot afford to be quiet and pretend that it is not aware of the excessive force being used on perpetrators in Zimbabwe. The Young African Leaders Initiative YALI has submitted a petition to President Edgar Lungu through the Minister of Justice to consider the proposal for bipartisan leadership to replace what it says is the failed national dialogue process. The petition calls on the government to expeditiously move to publish and table the key governance reforms in Parliament. YALI President Andrew Ntewewe says the petition is motivated by the fact that since mid-2017 the process to clean up the laws and move the reform agenda forward has stalled and that no tangible process has been achieved. Mr. Ntewewe states that the country cannot, however, be on a standstill. He says the Minister of Justice needs to expeditiously provide political direction with respect to amending the Constitution. Civil Society Constitutional Agenda CISCA Board Chairperson Bishop John Mambo has encouraged all stakeholders to rally behind those spearheading the national dialogue. Bishop Mambo has also encouraged the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue ZCID and the three church mother bodies to put aside their differences so that the long-awaited dialogue process can begin. Speaking to Q News, Bishop Mambo says delaying the national dialogue any further has implications on the Constitution Amendment Bill. He, however, states that he remains optimistic that the national dialogue will take place following its successful launch. Bishop Mambo has since appealed to all stakeholders to give the dialogue process a chance.
It's disappointing that we keep on changing, and I'm appealing to the Minister of Justice, who is a grounded Catholic, that we should never direct, our misgivings to the body of Christ. I think Bishop Lungu means well. The three mother bodies means well. I've always said that we know that the other mother bodies that are questioning why have we been left behind. Having been at the launch myself, I think it was made very, very clear that no Zambian is going to be left out of this process. Now, once we jump into conclusion, yet all along we were saying the dialogue.
Outgoing Secretary to the Cabinet Roland Msiska has reiterated government's call on all Zambians to remain patriotic. Dr. Msiska says the Zambian economy can sustain investor confidence and further grow if all people in the country work hard and become more patriotic. He has told QTV News that it is also important for the media to be truthful in their reporting and convey the correct information about the economy. Dr. Msiska is advising media houses to be wary that anything posted on the internet is enough to make an investor make a perception about Zambia. Police in Sesheke district have apprehended 5 suspected opposition United Party for National Democracy, UPND supporters, among them 4 men and 1 woman, following the violence that characterized the district on Wednesday, 23 January 2019. Zambia Police spokesperson Esther Katongo narrates that on the actual day, around 13 hours, police in Sesheke received a report purporting that suspected UPND supporters were removing campaign materials for their opponents. Mrs. Katongo adds that when police made a follow-up on the report, they recovered improvised short buttons, offensive weapons, from a Land Cruiser which was being used by the UPND team. She says it is upon that the UPND cadres later went to the police station to find out why their colleagues had been arrested, and on their way back they blocked the road with stones which they picked from a construction site which is located near their camp.
When our officers made a follow-up, they managed to apprehend 5 people, among them 4 men and 1 woman, and upon checking on the motor vehicle, which is a Land Cruiser, which was being used by the same UPND campaign team, officers found improvised short buttons, which are offensive weapons. Later in the day, more UPND cadres went to the police station to find out why their colleagues had been arrested, and on their way back they blocked the road with stones which they had picked from a construction site which is located near their camp. However, order was restored after police officers rushed to the scene. So far, the campaigns have been going on well in Sesheke, as there has been no clashes recorded between participating political parties except for yesterday's incidents where there were some skirmishes between the UPNG and the state police. We, however, appeal to all political parties to continue adhering to electoral laws and always preach messages of peace. All participating political parties should desist from destroying or removing campaign materials of their opponents, as such conduct is unlawful and has potential to breed anarchy.
Transport and Communications Minister Brian Mushimba says the construction of communication towers across the country at a total cost of 280 million United States dollars is nearing completion. Mr. Mushimba says 400 communication towers will be built this year, in addition to the over 600 that were erected last year. He says this would translate into about 96% of bringing the universal coverage of both internet and communication facilities to Zambians. Mr. Mushimba says that the project, which was supposed to be completed in 3 years, will be completed before schedule, as government expected to build over 1,000 communication towers at the end of the year out of a total of 1,009 towers that were expected to be completed in 3 years. He says the universal coverage of both internet and telephone will enhance communication facilities and meet the needs of the citizens. He adds that government is in the process of introducing regulations in the deployment of ICT infrastructure in order to bring order in the sector. Mr. Mushimba expressed concern that currently there was disorder among service providers in terms of deployment of ICT infrastructure. The minister was speaking from South Africa, where he is admitted to IRIP Hospital in Johannesburg after being involved in a road traffic accident. This is contained in a statement issued by First Secretary for Press and Public Relations at Zambia's High Commission in South Africa, Naomi Nyawali. The Zambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry ZACI has noted the need for government to consider revising the minimum requirement for setting up an investment in the Lusaka Multi-Facility Economic Zone MFEZ. ZACI President Michael Nyirenda feels the minimum threshold of 500,000 United States dollars is discouraging investment, especially for locals, as it is too high. Mr. Nyirenda says the slow uptake in terms of companies setting up industry and investments at the MFEZ is probably mostly because of this requirement. He has further noted the need for government through the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry and other relevant departments to demystify assertions that the MFEZ is only meant for foreign investors. Mr. Nyirenda has proposed that a mixed board comprising of both the private and public sectors should be appointed, which will help foresee the running of the MFEZ as well as the promotion of investment by both locals and foreigners.
The numbers are very, very low. I doubt, I mean, I don't have the facts, but I don't think we've reached beyond 30 or 40%. I mean, I may be corrected, but there's still a lot of room that, or a lot of spaces that needs to be taken up. And some of the challenges that may have faced that zone would be one, starting from the very setup that we do expect, or we do hope or urge government, who are the owners of that facility, with GRZ, to actually have a real look in terms of the composition of the board. We would recommend a mix of both public and private members, so that we can have a mix and learn from each other in terms of how we can run as that facility as a business. And this we can learn from, for example, as I referred to earlier, how the Roma Park has been run. So if we could borrow from the private sector also to have a mix in there, that would also actually go a long way. Secondly, management itself has to up its game. I know that they are doing a lot in that area, but we need to see more marketing strategies in terms of more information about what is available at the facility. What are the cost structures like? How long is the lease? What is the priority list in terms of investment into the zone? So we need more of that information, but also we need to demystify the thinking or the knowledge that the zone is meant for foreign investors. It's supposed to be for all investors. And that is actually will go a long way to try and encourage the local investor.
Labour Minister Joyce Simkoko says her ministry does not exist to suppress employers. Mrs. Simkoko says her ministry only acts as a mediator between employers and employees. Speaking during her second day of impromptu visits to shops in the Central Business District to check on compliance to the revised minimum wage, Mrs. Simkoko said the ministry wants employers and employees to work together. During the inspection, it was also brought to the minister's attention that there have been fake labour inspectors who claim to be from the Ministry of Labour who have been visiting the shops. Some of the shops visited include China Mall, Lamis Investment and Zhangshan Investment. Our staffer Martha Katambi has more in this report.
It was day 2 of the inspections by the Labour Minister Joyce Simkoko as she continued to inspect the compliance levels of the increment of minimum wages by shop owners. Some workers, however, were scared to talk to the minister and could take off upon seeing the media. Some employers as well were not welcoming.
That?
No, I'm not shouting.
Now, if you can shout at them.
I'm not shouting. I call her. She will not answer. Please. I know.
You know, we can close this shop.
I want to explain.
Do you know that?
I want to explain.
Do you know
I know you can close. You can
Okay.
chase me from here also.
Go.
Now you can.
We'll make a decision.
When you answer.
No, because I called her 2-3 times. She's not answering.
I can only imagine what you do to them when we are not here.
But the word from the minister was that the ministry does not want to suppress the employers, but rather ensure that they comply with the law and work in harmony with their workers.
So we want labor and capital to work together. The employer and employee, they must work together. The workers spend most of their time at the workplace. I think 8 hours. It's a lot of time. When we go home, we go to sleep. So we want workers to be happy at a workplace, looking forward to working. We also want the employers to get a fair return for their investment. So you can see, so the mediation takes place all the time. And so far, we have a lot of other areas. These people don't belong to unions. They need a lot of support. And I'm appealing, I think you heard me, telling the workers to have this time to read. When they hear the laws have been made at Parliament that protect a worker, let's have time to read, and once you are knowledgeable, knowledge is power, they say. Nobody can push you around.
Some workers, however, say that many are scared to talk about the challenges they face at their workplaces for fear of losing their jobs.
You say what it is, sometimes you get that little fear in you to say, but if I do this, what comes next is, I know that there are rights, yes, but the step which I need to take, I need to follow the rules.
Exactly.
So I cannot go against their laws.
What is the rule?
No, okay, what it is,
They have stopped you from knowing what is right and what
no, they did not stop us.
Like for me, I work under furniture by the sofa
what
section.
do you do there?
I'm a sales lady that side, but
And
on my
let's say
contract,
you know your salary?
my
And you have a contract?
yes, I have a contract, but on the contract form it's written general worker. So I've been asking me why general worker, but we're sales lady. Was like
You have been asking that.
we asked them, but they never said anything.
The minister has since summoned all employers who have not complied with the labor laws to the ministry. It is evident that government's mission is to ensure that the workers' conditions are improved without any challenges. Martha Katambi, reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
The Civil Aviation Authority CAA has not yet formally received an application to certify the Zambian Airways, in which the Ethiopian Airlines owns 45% shares. CAA Director General Gabriel Lesa says the authority is still waiting for the airline to apply for an Air Operator Certificate, AOC. Mr. Lesa says the newly installed board of the Zambian Airways will have to appoint a chief executive officer and management with whom the CAA will interface in issuing the AOC. He has told QTV News that the entire process is issuing an AOC takes a minimum of 3 months to a maximum of 1 year. Mr. Lesa states that given the Zambian government has partnered with the Ethiopian Airlines in setting up the national airline, the CAA envisages that this process will be seamless. He says the CAA considers Ethiopian Airlines as a renowned, experienced airline.
But at the moment, we are waiting for the airline to make an application for the AOC. And once they have done that, we will be able to inform the market. We know that currently the board has been set up, it has been appointed. So we'll be waiting upon the board to appoint the CEO and his directors with whom we shall interface. These are the people who are going to actually apply to the Civil Aviation Authority. And thereafter, certainly we'll be updating the progress. We do envision that the progress should be seamless because the strategic partner that the airline has actually entered into a partnership is quite renowned. The air operator certificate takes from 3 months, minimum of 3 months, to a maximum of, it could go for a year, depending on the responses we get. But if, like I said, the airline has an advantage of actually having somebody very experienced, their responsiveness might be quite quick, and we expect that the timeline should be.
Lusaka Province Minister Bowman Lusambo has directed Chongwe District Commissioner Fraser Msonda to ensure that the title deeds for Chalimbana University are secured. Chalimbana University has since inception in 1940 had no title deeds. This came to light when Chalimbana University Deputy Vice Chancellor Geoffrey Tambulukani told Mr. Lusambo when he toured the university that lack of title deeds has derailed development at the institution.
The Vice Chancellor will be sharing with you a very big challenge that we have. You have seen what we are trying to do with our own resources. We would like to do more. We have a challenge of title deed. We are on traditional land. We've been trying to get title deed through the normal channel, the royal establishment. We are not getting very far. And we do need the help of the royal establishment. We do need the help of government in order to get title deeds so that people can come and assist us. Organizations have come here to try to assist us, but they want title, and we don't have it. So they don't want to risk their money to help an institution which has no title deed in case they lose out. So that is our greatest cry. If we can be assisted to get title, we can do huge amounts of work here. So we are very grateful, and we are looking forward to your next visit when you see much more work that we can be able to do, especially with government help. We are excited about those 10 houses. We have been very worried about them ourselves because of the vandalism that is going on there. And most of our staff are traveling from Lusaka every day, commuting to come here because we have no housing. And by the time they come here, they are anxious, on this busy road, greatest road. Some of them don't have office space. They are planning their lessons from their cars. So we need lecture theaters, we need office space, we need classroom space. All those projects cannot succeed without, first of all, title and without extra help from.
And Mr. Lusambo says it is unacceptable for a public institution to have no title deeds. He has since directed the district commissioner to help in ensuring that the university, which has over the years been sitting on traditional land, has titles.
We can't have a government infrastructure sitting on a customary land, just like this. Okay? We just have to take it upon yourself as district commissioner, help the Chalimbana University. If you feel we can come in and assist where you feel that here you can't pass, I think we are ready to help. Okay, you have read that there are other partners who want to come and work with them, but we are asking them where is the title deed. And some of these things is not even negotiable. Why should we be negotiating on a title deeds for a school? This is a public institution. This is a public institution. This institution is not for Edgar Chagwalungu. This is not your institution. Either the doctor's institution. It's an institution for Zambians. But why should we be fighting for nothing? Why should we be fighting for nothing? A title deed for institution, the public infrastructure, we can't go on like this. We can't go on like this. So can you look into this issue?
And Mr. Musonda told the Lusaka Province Minister that he will ensure that title deeds are secured within the soonest possible time.
No, I'm afraid, Minister. I also must be quick to say that there is goodwill on the part of the Busole Law Establishment to help Charimara University as well as the Charimara Local Government Institute to get title deeds, because this is the direction which government has taken. So we have to expedite the process. And I can assure you, Honourable Minister, that within the shortest period of time, we'll be able to report that the title has been given.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Mr. Lusambo has given Chalimbana management a 1-month ultimatum to ensure that it completes staff houses whose construction has stalled for the past over 5 years.
The sewer ponds, the hostels, and also the abandoned houses. And that's where my interest is, Doc. My interest is on all those houses. Government of His Excellency Edgar Chagwa Lungu, we have spent a lot of money, and we can't abandon those houses at that stage. 80%, 90% complete. We cannot afford to abandon those houses. My directive to your management is that let us put our heads together and make sure that the first 10 teachers, let them accommodate, let them shift in those houses. Yes, we'll be meeting with the Permanent Secretary Higher Education, the Minister herself, and my Permanent Secretary, Lusaka Province, to see how best we can resolve these matters. We cannot go on like this. We cannot continue waiting for a contractor who's not seen. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, it's a lot of time. It's a long time. And the President actually will be very annoyed to see that those nice houses have been abandoned. For us, we are here to develop the country. The President was given this mandate of governing the nation, administering the affairs of the people of Zambia, to develop and make sure that we work on projects like the ones which we have visited. You know, Zambia we are still developing, and we won't develop unless we invest in education. And His Excellency's government, Mr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces, we have invested a lot in education. And the testimony is the things which we have just visited today. We have invested a lot of money, and we can't waste our money just like that.
The Opposition Alliance has been challenged to provide evidence of its allegation that the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue ZCID board has been bribed by State House to disrupt the church-led national dialogue. ZCID trustee Katele Kalumba says the Opposition Alliance should provide evidence to back its claims so that citizens can make a conclusion for themselves whether it is true or not that the ZCID board has been bribed. Dr. Kalumba has told Q News that as an ordinary citizen, he is aware that politicians are capable of creating fake news. He, however, states that as a trustee of the ZCID, who is supposed to represent the interest of all member political parties, he is not defending anybody over the said allegations. And Dr. Kalumba, who is also sub-chief Natende of Chienge district, has reiterated his advice to the church to resist the temptation of taking leadership of political processes. He has urged the church in the country to take a leaf from how the Catholic Church ended up being blamed for the 1994 genocide in Rwanda when it got engulfed in that country's political process.
You remember the Catholic Church ended up being blamed for the genocide in Rwanda. You understand? You know that as a matter of fact. In the Congo, there are criticisms about the role of the church in the Congo. I don't want our churches to be engulfed in political processes. They can advise in a calm manner, but they cannot take leadership of the political processes. Often they end up with a lemon on their hand. And I mean a lemon. When you want a good cow, you end up with a lemon. They are not politicians, they are spiritual leaders, and we respect them every bit that they are. And please understand, dialogue is a political process. It's not a spiritual process. It's a political process. And people who want to lead that process must be politically competent to understand how politicians can create fake news. They have to be politically competent to understand political processes.
The Movement for National Transformation (MNT) has justified why it is not interested in joining the opposition alliance formed by 12 other political parties. MNT President Daniel Shimunza says the current alliance among opposition political parties is weak and does not espouse the values his party believes in. Mr. Shimunza says his party has also taken note that some political parties that are in the alliance were part of the current government, which has been condemned for alleged corrupt practices. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Shimunza says the MNT has further observed that political parties that have formed the alliance are in fact pushing the agenda of just one political party. The MNT leader, who has held back from naming this political party, states that his party therefore intends to go it alone with its ideology of making Zambia a first world income country. And Mr. Shimunza has accused the ruling Patriotic Front and the opposition UPND of being the two political parties that are influencing the national dialogue process to fail. He says he has personally taken note that the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue (ZCID) has consequently become a victim of peer rivalry between the two political parties.
Because whatever the UPND say, the PF say no. Whatever the PF say, if they are in support of ZCID, the UPND will say no. ZCID has become an anvil or a victim of peer rivalry between the UPND and the PF. So what is happening is that whatever reasons people want to give, it is basically a problem of UPND and PF. And this problem has been there since 2015, 2016, and even the post-election period. So the failure of the UPND and PF to look eye to eye and be able to say, let's be magnanimous enough and mature enough in national interest to put aside our partisan agenda and begin to look at the national picture. That is what is causing this dialogue not to work. And if it doesn't work, for us in Movement for National Transformation, again, it proves that the PF and the UPND are not the right alternative for 2021 for the Zambian people, because they have failed to come together in national interest and solve the political problems that they created. Okay, since 2011, the PF and the UPND have been at each other, and Zambians are suffering. They are looking for an alternative. If they were the alternative, this is the time they should have shown that they are willing to put aside their differences of violence in politics, insults, and all the peer rivalry that has been going on. Because
National Arts Council NAC Vice Chairperson Agnes Nyendwa has advised artists to ensure what they bring out to the public reflects the true image of the morals and culture of society. Ms. Nyendwa says art is like a mirror of society, hence the need to ensure what is reflected through art is actually the true image of society. Ms. Nyendwa states that artists should know and understand what message they are trying to put across to the society.
Pleasant. I don't know how many of you know that there's a new ministry called Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs. They have come up with a very big program. This program will consist of implementing national values and principles. And within that, the issue of addressing negative things, okay, or art that portrays negatively our society will actually be dealt with. So be rest assured that the national values and principles will address every aspect of this society, particularly those aspects that do not portray our country or give the image that our country should stand for. So it will also address the music element. And it also comes back to us as artists. What is it that we want to bring out? Sister D already made it. If we are the mirror of society, do we really look at ourselves through that mirror and see the reflection?
Lupososhi Member of Parliament Lazarus Chungu says poor mobile phone reception is now a thing of the past in his constituency. Mr. Chungu says all 4 chiefdoms in his constituency each now has communication towers erected by Zamtel. He has told QTV News that people of Chief Tungati, Chief Chabula, Chief Fungu and Chief Katuta's area are now able to communicate using mobile phones.
So all these put together with the construction of towers in all the 4 chiefdoms of the Pososhi constituency. And when I say 4 chiefdoms, I'm referring to Chief Tungati, Chief Chabula, Chief Shungu, and Chief Katuta. All these have at least brand new Zamtel towers, telecommunication towers. And so it is my prayer and hope that my people in the Pososhi constituency will now be able to communicate easily, freely with their various relatives and children, brothers and sisters within the Republic of Zambia and beyond. So that's another achievement that we recorded in 2018. So,
to end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. Zambia's installed power generation capacity will by June rise to 3,000 megawatts. And President Edgar Lungu has been called upon to state his position on the atrocities being perpetrated against civilians by authorities in Zimbabwe. On that note, we come to the end of the news. From me, Dana Sumbwe. Thank you for watching.